You're sitting here watching this beautiful marvel of nature, listening to the wind go through the trees, the water rushing, watching the sunlight play off of the water itself and pouring all over the leaves. And you think to yourself, this is so Ghibli coded. Or at least I hope you're thinking that, because I'm about to tell you a list of manhwas that I think match the vibes of certain Ghibli movies. And we're going to start first with Howl's Moving Castle. The first story I offer to you is The Handmaid Tales of the Handmaid. This is about a Korean grandmother who found herself uh, in the body of a much younger woman living in a fantasy realm. She's a maid at this uh, very lavish estate, and she's just kind of rolling with it. Like, she's not worried or scared at all. She's just like, okay, I guess this is a whole new opportunity. And she basically goes and just does what she does her best, a very efficient person, and she kind of captures the hearts of the whole family, including the young master. But I think this is Howl's Moving Castle related because it's all about an age reversal. uh, in this case, in Handmaid Tale of the Handmaid, it's an old woman becomes a young woman, whereas with Sophie, she was a young woman became an old woman. It's still the same thing. uh, Both become maids at a bigger estate. They focus on improving the family's life by just doing what they do best, which is, being efficient, good mannered, hardworking, very personable. Magic is involved. It's very a sweet and slow story. Uh, there's really not much drama at the first like 20 chapters. It slowly builds up, but it's just really sweet. Even if you don't agree with me, I still think you should check out this story. The next manhwa that relates to Howl's Moving Castle is Writing My Male Leads Happily Ever After. Don't click off. I know that title is long, but that's just the way these things go. Now, this one is also about a young woman who, interestingly enough, she actually got transported into her own story. She wrote a story about this duke who was cursed. The curse would almost start to consume him before he met the female lead, and he got crazy and possessive over her. I don't know what the term is. I know it's in Japanese, it's yandere, but what is it in Korean? I never did find that out, and I'll look it up later. There'll be no redos on this video. But this one makes sense because it's about a woman who comes to help the duke who's cursed, helps his family. He's got two small children. She changes the family, same as the other one, but in this one, she's acting more as a sort of nanny to the children. She was previously a daycare worker or a preschool worker. I can't remember which. And so she has a lot of like actual like scientific uh, theories and manners for teaching children. There's some drama and there's some sweetness. Uh, the male lead is a lot less possessive and weird over her than he was over the original female lead, which is nice. And the female main character grows into her own, much like Sophie, builds confidence, feels like she belongs in the story, and it's just really nice. Great art style, nice story all over. Last story here is I Married the Male Lead's Dad. It seems like it gives off the same vibe as the second one I just told you. It's not. This one is actually really funny because the woman who gets transmigrated into the story, she is self-professed a simp for the main character, which is actually the son, or well, he's the male lead, and she's going to the castle to find, well, to marry his dad, so that when he dies, because she has no plans on helping that out apparently, she can stay there and like protect the son. Hilarious. There's a lot of misunderstandings between the two of them, the father and her, because he really swears she's in love with him, and she's just there for to take care of his child entirely. I want to make sure I'm not making it too creepy because it can be kind of sometimes, but it's sweet. Uh, that's really what kind of relates to me with Howl's Moving Castle. The male lead and Howl are both kind of narcissistic. and the female leads are strong, but they have different motives for being strong, I guess. Sophie just has always had to rely on herself, and the female lead, she is strong for the sake of the son. So not as many things to relate to with this story as with the other two, but I figured I would just throw it in there because I want to have at least 2 to 3 manhwas that match. So let's go on to the next Ghibli movie, Kiki's Delivery Service. It's actually been a few years since I've seen this one, but I still remember most of the themes, which is why I'm confident in saying that the best manhwa to relate to this movie is I Shall Master This Family. Or I think the other title is I Shall Become the Matriarch of the Family, something like that. In this story, instead of a woman from the real world being sent to a fantasy world, this main character has always lived in this world and has just regressed. So she's gone back in time to her like younger 7-year-old self. And using her future knowledge of what happens to the family, spoiler alert, it all comes crashing down because the father left it to his 2 incompetent sons. She's able to save them a lot of trouble, and in the process, she begins a path to become the actual leader of the family after her grandfather. So this one is most relating to Kiki's Delivery Service, I think, because it's about a young girl who, at least in the female lead's first life, she was unsure of her position in life. She was insecure because she was known as an illegitimate daughter of her father. Her parents weren't married, and so that caused a lot of grief for her. She was looked down upon, and her father wasn't very strong, so they didn't have a very strong position in the family. She didn't really get a backbone until it was much too late. So in this second life, she's releasing those doubts, and if there's any doubts that she does have, she powers through them, which is one of the main themes of Kiki's Delivery Service. Kiki, she moves to the town, and at first she's just kind of like vibing with it, but then as she learns more and more about owning a business and being your own person, she gets really insecure about it, and that messes up with her powers. So this one is very similar in those ways, even if like the timeline is different. It's also about, at least in the second turn, having people around you who help guide you and who are kind of inspired by your journey. And if they see you faltering or something happens, they're there to pick you up. A lot of found family themes in a lot of these manhwas, and of course in Ghibli films. But it's about a young girl. She's finding her place in her own life and in her family's life. She's carving her way forward. She's handling problems, solving things, the family business. It's all great. Now, the next story is called The Villainess Flips the Script. Fewer similarities here, but still the same sort of like general vibe. You've got a woman who we think transmigrated. It is assumed at first and sort of peddled to the reader that she transmigrates. That's all I'm going to say. And she thinks she knows how the story goes. The way it's supposed to go is that the character she's in now, she was abusive to her nephew. The nephew gets picked up by his rich uncle. He pays off the aunt so that they can go away and live, and she eventually dies later because of the main villain of the story, who becomes a really big thorn in the male lead side. So she basically gets her comeuppance. But now that this new person is in her body, she doesn't want anything to do with that. So she changes her attitude. She becomes nice to the male lead. When the uncle comes around, she's ready to let him go, but the male lead actually flips the script on her and says, I'm not going anywhere without my aunt. She's got to come with us. So now she's just thrust into this whole new situation. She's got no clue what's going to happen. She has various ideas of what the villains do to the heroes and how that messes up their life, and she has to figure out how to not die during that, and also like try to help the male lead get the best life possible because his first go around was rough. So this one, the woman's an adult, but she's also showing a lot of insecurity throughout the story because she's kind of winging it all the time. She knows what happens, but not really the major plot points behind everything, like how it all occurs up to that point, and what she can do now that she's, gone past her, not to be crude, but expiration date here. And so she has to learn to rely on not just others, but she also has to figure out how to, rely on her own strength, be strong on her own, use her own powers and strengths to get through these things and make herself known as a valuable player and a person who controls her own life. Very much Kiki's Delivery Service themed. Next one, again, these are all popular Ghibli films. I think everybody does these, but they're popular for a reason. Spirited Away. Now, I know what you might be thinking if you're somebody who reads manhwas a lot. Pretty much any like person transmigrated to another story is a Spirited Away kind of theme. But that's just way too easy. That's way too easy. So let's make it more critical here, right? The very first story is How to Survive as a Maid in a Horror Game. This one I found just on a lark on Tapas when I was just browsing around looking for something else to read because I'd already read all of my daily limits. So this one struck me, and I was like, I haven't actually read a horror manhwa. And this one is fairly creepy. There is a lot of tension in this one. I don't think it's the scariest thing you could read, but it is very tense, and you're kind of on tenterhooks along with the female lead. So she was pulled from her real world into this game world, and the game is ruthless to her. Not in terms of like scares or horror, but more in like in terms of survival. She has it like she has to earn the right to sleep on a pillow. She has to earn the right to sleep on the bed. She can't just sleep on the floor. She's got to actually sleep in the bed to recover, but they won't allow her to because, I mean, that's how like serious the game gets with her. It honestly feels like the game tortures her more than any of the main characters ever could. Death could be seen as a mercy in this case, but she dies in the game, she dies in real life. So she has to, I mean, build coins. She has to build, the game up. She has to earn coins. She has to maintain a low enough profile to not be targeted by the main antagonist here, but also have to put forth enough effort to keep up a good working relationship with others, which is actually quite a bit harder than it seems, again, because the game mechanics seem sort of like dedicated to making her suffer. It's funny, it's scary, it is a kind of a twisty story. A lot of religious themes enter into it. So if you have problems with Christian or Catholic themes and stories, this one isn't for you. But if you are just interested in a horror manhwa or a manhwa story where the female lead and male lead are kind of both antagonists and protagonists and strangely intertwined, this one is perfect for you. It's not going to be a sweet love story like Chihiro and Haku, but there is interesting tension, and it is about a person who's, been taken away from her home, and she's got to learn how to survive in pretty unreasonable conditions. Next story is Being Raised by Villains. Now, this one is much lighter, much cuter, probably more along the same sort of like lighthearted vibe as Spirited Away, if you don't look too deeply, of course. So this one is all about a girl. She's been adopted into the family of sorts. Her father kind of doesn't really recognize or know her. And in the original story, before the person was transmigrated into the body of this child, she ended up being found out as like a different animal entirely from the rest of her family because they're shapeshifters, and they cast her out and she dies, which is crazy. That girl's like 5. But this story is all about that girl trying to like hide what she is from her family when that's no longer the case. She's got to find a way to kind of like make it on her own, but at the same time, the changes that she's wreaking upon the story to survive is also changing the attitudes and lives of those around her. So she's gaining support and a family at the same time as she's learning, how to be herself, who she is, and trying to figure out what she is entirely. So in this case, the female lead is more like Haku than actually Chihiro. She doesn't really know what she is, and she's trying to figure it out piece by piece. And others are helping her out while also helping her survive any, trials and tribulations that she comes across. Super cute. Also great art. Well, pretty much all these stories I just said have great art. So if I don't say it, don't think that it's ugly. They're all really nice. Third one. This one might have the fewest connections, but I do think it has a strong enough connection to add it. It's called Afterlife Diner. Now, Afterlife Diner is about a young man who just recently was informed that he has been given a restaurant by a deceased family member. They left it to him in their will. And the only requirement, in order for him to get like all the money she leaves him and the restaurant, is that he just has to work, a certain hours. He has to follow the menu. He has to just keep it going every day. And he thinks that's totally fine. What he doesn't know, and what he will soon find out, of course, is that this diner is different from anything he's ever seen before. It is a diner for the non-human world. And so he has to sort of not only acclimate fast, because screaming at your customers is very bad guest service, but he also has to sort of like, become a better restaurateur, a better chef, a better person who can handle all this. So he's very much like Chihiro in that he's just been thrust abruptly into this supernatural world that he had no idea existed beforehand. And he's got to work this off because it's the only way that he can sort of continue to live and to not like be lost to squalor and poverty with the rising bills he's got or he had. And it's also just really nice. There's a lot of people that come and help him because they knew his family member, the one who owned the restaurant previously, and they're willing to help him out. A lot of good friend and found family vibes here. I'm not done with it. I don't think I'm even halfway done with it, but it had enough of a connection for me to want to add it. So I hope that if you decide to read it, you enjoy it too. Because sometimes I like reading manhwas that aren't all power fantasies. Sometimes you just like, a little cooking thing. Food is a big Ghibli theme, isn't it? At least for us. I pray there's a day I can eat a bowl of ramen that's as good as the ones in any Ghibli film looks like. But I digress. Let's go on. I have 3 more Ghibli films, and hopefully these are ones. The next one is again popular, but I think the next 2 are going to surprise you. So anyway, next film, My Neighbor Totoro. There's really only 2 that I've read personally that I could attach to the sort of very low key and soft and natural vibes. Nothing like, no big adventure stories or anything like that. I mean, they're adventures for little girls, but something very low key and relaxed. So the first story, Mother's Contract Marriage. And if you call me a liar immediately, I would not blame you because this story is full of politics and palace intrigue in so much as the main character herself notices, which isn't really much because she's like 8 when the story starts. But as she gets older, more of it comes up. But I'm adding it because it is about a little girl, and at least when she's young, she doesn't notice all the political intrigue or all of the drama that happens between the noblest families. But let me explain. Mother's Contract Marriage is about a young girl who suddenly wakes up and her mother is completely different. So the main character is not the one who regressed in this particular story. Her mother is. So you're actually reading the story of a person whose loved one has suddenly completely changed their behaviors. Before, her mother used to be sort of like a drunken, unreliable person, and the little girl was actually the one who had to work for the family, figure out a way for them to survive. One day she wakes up and her mother's completely different, starts getting dressed, cleans up, talks about how they have to go and make sure she gets married to the king. I mean, all kinds of stuff that only a crazy person would yell. And she's trying so hard to get her mother to calm down. Hey, you're just going through a spell. Let me buy you some bread. But it turns out actually that her mother was right. So she is then thrust into the role of a new princess of the kingdom while her mother is married to the king. And she's got no idea what happened. All she knows is that her mother told her she's formed a contract with the king so that they can live a better life. And after, I think, 10 years, she can divorce and they'll be able to live comfortably, just the 2 of them, in like some far off cottage. Meanwhile, all she has to do is just sit there and look pretty, which the girl does not understand. She's lived a life thus far of just being poor and having to work every day for some food that her mother might throw away because she was so drunk. A lot of trauma here. But My Neighbor Totoro fits with this particular manual because it's about a little girl who is acclimating to her new surroundings. They just moved to this brand new place. It's gorgeous. It's totally different from the slums she was living in. So again, she's exploring gardens. It's nature themed. She's finding new mystical things. The king himself is a dragon. So that's kind of like whatever Totoro is. I would not be surprised if they came out later saying, oh, he's like a sub-dragon species. or something. Well, he's not a cat. What is he, a panda? No, he's not a panda. I'm pretty sure he's like a sub-dragon species. Anyway, so the little girl's just, she's going on adventures. She's connecting with her new family, reconnecting with her mother. And she's really kind of finding her place in the palace and figuring out who she is. Lots of magic, very sweet magic. She becomes something sort of like a little magical girl, but not really. I mean, it's just cute. I highly recommend it. Even if I'm not selling you, look at the cover art. That is how pretty the whole manhwa is. It is gorgeous. At least read the first 5 chapters to see what it's about if I have not yet convinced you. All right. Now, second story that connects to My Neighbor Totoro is The Little Lady Tames the Leads. The art here is okay, but it's made up for by the very, very sweet story. I mean, it's still pretty, but it's okay in comparison to some of the others. And again, in comparison to Mother's Contract Marriage. But if you're not shallow like I am, then it wouldn't matter to you. So this is about a girl who's transmigrated, or a woman who transmigrated into the body of this elementary school girl. It's in a fantasy setting. She's the daughter of like a count or a marquis or something, and she's going to go to school with a bunch of really like powerful sons and daughters of the aristocracy. And she's got to figure out how to like keep them all like centered and rational and chill, because from the stories she's read, a lot of them are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So she does that, and she does that way too well because ends up becoming like the class best friend. It's a really sweet little manhwa, and actually it like has that thing on Tapas where instead of having to wait for a chapter every day, you can read it like a chapter every 3 hours. Very nice. So this one connects to Neighbor Totoro, not really in any like nature themes, but it's just in the themes of friendship and the themes of like, coming together and just enjoying the simple things that children should enjoy. Going shopping together, having tea together, playing games, and being kind to one another. Totoro themes. Next Ghibli film, Tales from Earthsea. I actually have only seen this movie once, but I do check up on it every now and again. So if you have seen it just recently and you think that I have made horrible connections to this, I apologize. I will not recant. So, first one, S classes that I raised. If you know the story, this might be a surprise. You're trying to figure out how do these two connect. Let me explain. So Tales from Earthsea is all about this prince and this sorcerer, right, who have to get together. And if I'm saying sorcerer and it's actually mage or something, please forgive me. I'm just trying to remember, go off what I remember. But they have to come together and save their land from destruction because there's an evil force that's imbalancing magic in the land, and they have to combine forces with the priestess and her daughter, and it's all very beautiful. And the prince, he feels like a darkness kind of rising up in him. He's got to fight both this darkness within and the darkness without. So, as classes that I raised works perfectly because the main character is kind of a guy who's also had to work through a lot of darkness. He, after his parents died, he kind of raised his little brother on his own, and he was a person who was like super proud of his brother. Well, he always is. But before dungeons came into the world, he was like the guy that like was totally devoted to his little brother, always talking about him, was super proud of him and everything. But when dungeons broke out and people started, gaining powers to fight them, his little brother literally became one of the strongest people in South Korea, also known as an S class. So once that happened, for reasons unknown to the elder brother, the main character, the little brother distanced himself from his brother and kind of treated him as a nuisance, which really, hurt the main character because he spent so many years taking care of this kid. He loved him to death with every fiber of his being, and he didn't understand what happened all of a sudden to make this young, polite boy he raised become somebody who would toss aside family in his mind just for, publicity, or because he was embarrassed that his brother was not an awakened person. So things ended up happening where he kind of made some bad decisions to try to like connect with his brother again. He ended up in a bad dungeon where his brother had to come save him, and he lost his life. The main character, manages to gain a chance to kind of like turn back time. When he turns back time, he changes everything. He changes how he approaches his brother. He says, "Hey, I'm really sorry that I caused all these problems for you. I was just worried about you, but we're not going to do that anymore if this is really what you want." And that changes everything. The brothers are thick as thieves again, and now he's got new powers. He's got powers to like tame monsters, like strong monsters, which nobody's ever been able to do before. And it makes him both valuable and even more of a target. So this is a story about brothers, falling apart and coming together and staying stronger than ever. It's about mysteries. It's about the truth behind the dungeons. And so this hits exactly the points of Tales from Earthsea, because it's about these people who have to come together to, keep the balance of the earth, figure out why this magic is coming in and is destabilizing and is growing to a point where it's threatening all of humanity. And he's got these powers he has to deal with, and he's got to, reconcile the fact that, he made mistakes in the past that are sort of somehow echoing into this new timeline, and also trying to figure out, like, the mysteries behind his little brother and the other S classes, because he's got to figure out how to combine or get all the S class hunters to work together. It's great. It's actually really, really good. It's top rated. It's top of its class. I recommend it intensely. And I'm only saying that, I only ever say that when I think that I'm not convincing you enough to read this manhwa based on its Ghibli movie companion, which is fair because I don't think many people have seen Tales from Earthsea. But it was good. Very beautiful film. Very beautiful, actually. Anyway, second story, and this one probably eclipses everything else. You know it, you love it, or maybe you hate it, but the next manhwa that connects to Tales from Earthsea is Solo Leveling. Now, maybe you can already guess from what I said before about this movie, but it makes sense. Sung Jin-woo also is battling a darkness within him. Insecurities about being the weakest hunter known to mankind, being quote unquote gifted this power that he has no clue what's happening, but he's finding out the more that he levels up that like things are going wrong with all these dungeons, and they're gaining in number and power, and there's forces at work behind the curtain that are threatening to destroy humanity. So he has to work together with various people. He has to work together with this system, even as the system is maybe also possibly something that has betrayed him or will betray him in the future. It's about, somebody gaining power. And I mean, that's kind of where it ends. He doesn't really learn. I don't know if he ever really learns to trust others, at least from what I've read. I haven't finished the manhwa, but I know how it ends, and I know a lot of the beats. I'm actually like 3/4 of the way through with it. But from what I see, he doesn't really learn to genuinely trust people. He just kind of, it's him alone. That's the whole point. Solo Leveling. So different from Ghibli movies, especially Tales from Earthsea. They always focus on, kind of relying upon others and working as a group. But it hits in the fact that there's darkness brewing. There's darkness in the main characters. They have to learn how to fight it or utilize it. There's romance. Female lead of Tales from Earthsea, a bit feistier than maybe the one from Solo Leveling. And I know her name, but I'm not going to say it because I really feel like I'm going to butcher the name. I haven't seen the episodes where they pronounce it, so I don't want to do that. My sincerest apologies. But I felt like it was just impossible to not even mention that. I think it just makes sense. And I was having trouble figuring out another manhwa that fit Tales from Earthsea anyway. That is a complicated film. The last Ghibli film is Whispers of the Heart. Now, this one is actually my favorite. And so I was very careful about trying to pick a manhwa for it. But there's two that I can see for it. And the first one is 50 Tea Recipes for the Duchess. Probably haven't heard of it. I really wouldn't have known about it if I hadn't just been scrolling through like recommended like stories through one of my other subscribed stories. And this one is super sweet. I didn't even know there was any magic in this story until like the last quarter of the story itself. It's very much just this person transmigrating into another world where it's aristocratic and it's a little more traditional. So not like a bunch of wizards and witches and mages. Again, I didn't know there was any magic in this world until like way late in the story. But it's about a woman who was an office worker. She's now inhabiting the body of the wife of this duchess. The woman herself was honestly, I mean, kind of a girl failure. Hate to say it. She seemed like she really had a tough time, very anxious, but she was a girl failure because of various things. If you read it, you'll see why. And so this woman has to kind of like uh, do several things at once. Rebuild her reputation with the staff, the housing staff. You know how much of a failure you have to be to have the housing staff look down upon you in like an aristocratic setting? She has to rebuild her reputation amongst the nobility, rebuild her reputation. Well, I say rebuild, but she has to build a reputation with her husband because he really didn't care much about her. And she also has to find the perfect blend of tea. And that's going to be her saving grace in the story. The fact that she loves and is dedicated to the study and the art of tea. That's all I'm going to say. It matches Whispers of the Heart because it's about this uh, female lead who's just kind of like emerging into this new world. Whispers of the Heart is a coming of age story. 50 Tea Recipes for the Duchess is a coming into her own story in this like new era, new setting. It's about two people who kind of are opposites slowly coming together. It's a very sweet and slow love story, like Whispers of the Heart. Uh, the female main character in Whispers of the Heart had her love of books. This main character in 50 Tea Recipes for the Duchess has her main love of tea. It's sweet. It's nice. I recommend it. Again, I don't think I sold that well, but whatever. Second story, I will become the villain's poison taster. And I actually should have started with this one first because I'm more enthusiastic about it, honestly. I'm only more enthusiastic about it though because the dynamic between the female lead and the male lead is so cute. I actually think that they're kind of like Serena and was it Damien? You know, the main lead of the Sailor Moon. They're them coded. Man, I'm really bad at this, but it's so cute. Uh, the female lead is a office worker who was transmigrated into the body of a minor villain. She's just kind of flustered. She's terrible at lying. So she only manages to convince the male lead, who is a sort of what we only know right now as a villain of the story. He's very charming and charismatic and dark, but he's just very interested in sort of like the unabashed honesty and earnestness of the female lead. And so he takes her along. They find out she can survive any kind of poison, and it actually tastes like different things to her, like kiwi, strawberry, mango, things like that. And through the course of them trying to figure out like what happened, how did she get here, and what's going on with the supposed good guys, they get really close. We find out some things about him and about her, and it's very cute. It's a really, really, really cute like dynamic between them that grows. And it has there's like a third act, like, oopsie daisy, but it's still sweet. And they handle it in a sort of like a mature manner. So actually I would say it's more like uh the Sailor Moon main couple, but with maturity instead of like that weird 90s antagonism that it was so prevalent in their romances. But super cute. So go read them. I don't know how to end this, but thank you all for listening. If you made it this far, I hope I gave you all some new reading material. If you've never read Manhwa before, I hope I gave you encouragement to try one. Not all power fantasies. You don't have to read about dungeons and swords and edge lords. You can just read about people drinking tea or cooking. It's really nice. Anyway, thank you and enjoy your reading.